Daily walks lasting from 20 to 60 minutes are undoubtedly beneficial for the cardiovascular system. Since childhood, we've been taught that walking is a healthy physical activity. However, few realize that after the age of 60, walking alone can catalyze muscle loss, leading to daily leg pain. Unexpected, isn't it? Most people are surprised to learn this. The reason is that many habits we consider beneficial actually accelerate muscle loss, making us feel weaker every day after reaching a certain age. Probably many of us unknowingly make 5 common mistakes that harm the body. Curious to know how to fix it? The first of these mistakes is walking, or rather, exclusive adherence to walking alone. Daily 30-minute or even hourly walks are seen as an investment in health. After all, we've been told since childhood that walking is the ideal exercise, especially with age. But here's what's often unsaid. After 60, walking alone can accelerate muscle loss. Yes, that's not a typo. You can put in the effort but still lose muscle mass every day. Paradoxical, isn't it? However, this is based on a simple principle of how the body works. If muscles don't get enough load, the body decides they are no longer needed. Walking activates movement, improves blood circulation, which is certainly good for the heart. But, unfortunately, this is not enough to maintain muscle mass. It's a light physical activity that cannot stop sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss. What does this lead to? Legs become thinner, buttocks lose shape, and the back feels weak. Then pain appears, strength decreases, balance is impaired, and fatigue occurs when climbing stairs. And at this point, we start blaming everything on age. But it's not just about age. It's about insufficient muscle stimulation. To maintain their viability, muscles need resistance, which walking cannot provide. To preserve muscle mass, it's necessary to include strength exercises in your life, even in an adapted and gentle form. This could be getting up from a chair, light squats, using elastic bands, lifting small weights, or exercises with your own body weight. The main thing here is not complexity, but awareness. If muscles don't get enough load, then, despite the best intentions, there is a loss of strength vital for aging. Reducing muscle mass leads to decreased independence, loss of energy, increased pain, and increased dependence on outside help. Walking is certainly useful and important, but it alone is not enough to maintain a healthy body that needs more. The second common mistake people make daily is related to poor nutrition, specifically insufficient protein intake. Many believe they eat correctly, consuming rice, legumes, vegetables, and fruits, and this is certainly beneficial. However, eating right doesn't always mean getting enough protein, which becomes especially important after 60. With age, the body processes protein less efficiently, so it needs more than in your 30s or 40s. Most people don't realize this and think that a small amount of meat at lunch is enough, while breakfast and dinner often contain little or no protein. As a result, the body remains without the building materials needed to maintain muscles for most of the day. Without a uniform supply of protein throughout the day, the body begins to break down its own resources, namely muscles. This process happens gradually and imperceptibly, but over time manifests as fatigue, weakness, and slowed recovery after physical exertion. Even with a healthy lifestyle, if muscles don't get the protein they need to recover, they will still shrink. This is not about striving for an athletic physique or building impressive muscle mass. The real goal is to maintain physical strength, maintain flexibility, and ensure personal independence. There's no need for huge portions of steak. Protein can come from a variety of foods: eggs, yogurt, legumes, lentils, chicken, fish. Even a small portion of protein powder added to a smoothie can be beneficial. The key factor is regularity. A small amount of protein should be consumed with each meal, as the body cannot store it like fat. It needs a constant replenishment of reserves. Therefore, the next time you think, "I eat right, I'm fine," it's worth stopping and asking yourself, am I feeding my muscles or just filling my stomach? A common mistake is excessive caution, which often seems like a reasonable approach. As people age, they naturally become more cautious. They start avoiding certain movements not only out of fear of falling, but also out of fear of potential pain, sprains, or unpleasant sensations the next day. A voice arises in the mind, warning, "Better not to try this, you might strain your back." Or, "Don't bend over like that, the risk is too great." Gradually, a person stops moving as they used to. They avoid stretching, twisting, and confident steps. They convince themselves that they are being cautious, but in reality their body is subtly losing the ability to move. The reason lies not in age, but in the lack of necessity to perform these movements. It should be understood that avoiding physical exercise to prevent discomfort actually leads to increased discomfort in the long run. Without sufficient physical activity, the body becomes stiff. Joints lose mobility, muscles weaken, and even simple actions, such as putting on shoes or getting out of bed, begin to seem difficult. These difficulties breed insecurity, which turns into fear. A person starts moving less, experiencing more pain, and losing confidence in themselves. It is important to understand that exercises do not necessarily have to cause pain to be beneficial. They don't have to be intense to be effective. The goal is not to push the limits of possibility, but to remind the body how to perform movements that seem safe and feasible. Controlled, comfortable exercises that build strength without overexertion and improve balance without fear, when performed regularly, help restore trust in one's own body. A person begins to feel more stable and capable. They stop expecting pain and start moving with ease. Many people, fearing injury or unpleasant sensations, limit their physical activity, not realizing that such immobility only increases their vulnerability. True protection lies in moderate and regular movement that keeps muscles toned, joints mobile, and self-confidence unwavering. A common mistake is confusing busyness with physical activity. A person may be constantly on the move, doing household chores, shopping, and solving everyday problems. But this activity does not provide sufficient load on the muscles, does not strengthen the legs, does not improve balance, and does not protect the joints. Such activity only keeps a person on their feet, but does not prevent muscle loss. As a result, there is a deceptive feeling of sufficient physical activity, while the body switches to a mode of inefficient activity, which inevitably affects its condition. This phenomenon is called masked sedentary behavior. A person does not spend entire days on the couch, but their muscles still do not receive the necessary load. Insufficient load on the muscles leads to their weakening, poor posture, and stiff joints. Everyday tasks begin to seem more difficult than they should be, and the energy that used to sustain a person throughout the day gradually fades. The most difficult thing in this situation is that such a lifestyle is easy to justify, creating the illusion of active activity. However, over time, this illusion turns into a loss of strength, mobility, and stability. Maintaining independence in old age requires not just movement, but conscious efforts aimed at strengthening the body. There is no need to train like a professional athlete, but it is important that the body regularly receives the necessary load. The fifth mistake, often overlooked, has a hidden but comprehensive impact on a person's efforts. This is the belief that rest is secondary, and stress is an inevitable part of life after a certain point. Often people do not think about the quality of their sleep and do not realize the relationship between stress levels and physical health. However, both of these factors play a huge role in the reaction of muscles to stress. Most people do not realize that muscle growth occurs not during training, but during rest. If sleep is shallow, irregular, or intermittent, the body is deprived of the opportunity to recover from the efforts made. Then comes stress, not only caused by large-scale events, but also every day, barely noticeable, which accumulates gradually. Worry about health, family, finances. This constant mental noise is reflected in the body, causing muscle tension, disrupting sleep and hormonal balance. Over time, this leads to exhaustion, brain fog, loss of motivation, and decreased physical strength. This condition can be mistakenly attributed to age, But the problem is not only in it. The fact is that the body is experiencing an acute shortage of deep rest, peace, and recovery. This isn't just a whim, it's a vital necessity. During sleep, the body recovers, hormones are balanced, inflammation subsides, and the brain and muscles are protected. Emotional rest, free from constant worry and tension, signals to the body that it's safe to recover, build, and thrive. Therefore, if a person feels tired, heavy, and recovers slowly despite all efforts, they should pay attention to their nightly rest and stress levels. No amount of exercise or dieting can compensate for the damage caused by chronic fatigue.